As with Li Wen, we meet Huang through Stockholm in 2011, this time on a trip to Shenzhen from Hong Kong. At a restaurant in Shenzhen's Longhua district, we sit with Sung and two of his friends, also in their early 20s, as they slouch in their chairs, smoke cigarettes, and inventory the long list of moves from city to city each has made in search of stable work. Sung and his friends have stories similar to those of many young Chinese workers we meet. He grew up in the countryside with his grandparents, while his parents worked in a major manufacturing center hundreds of miles away. With little opportunity for work in rural China, Sung made the trip to join his parents in the town of Hangzhou, one of Chinese designated special economic zones free from import and export taxes, and many of China's national labor regulations. Life for rural Chinese in urban manufacturing zones can be transient at best. National residency laws designed to limit urban sprawl make settling down in cities like Hangzhou virtually impossible for migrant workers. Many live in company-sponsored dormitories during the week and travel hundreds of miles to their home villages on the weekends. The stress of this sort of instability on young families can be enormous. Sung found he couldn't get along with his parents who had been absent for much of his childhood, and he ran away at 16 and began supporting himself. Names have been changed to protect the identity of the narrator. I have a lot of stories to tell because I have many spirits. I have a lot of job experience, and I've tried a few occupations. I was brought up in Jiangxi province by my parents. Jingzhenzhen, Jiangxi, not far from where I grew up, is world famous for its porcelain, especially porcelain dishes. But my village is very common, and my family lived a common agricultural life. At home, it was me, my younger sisters, and my grandparents. We didn't see my parents very often since they worked factory jobs hundreds of miles away. I went to junior high, but I didn't make it past the third year there. I wasn't very obedient, and I decided I couldn't learn much from the school. At that time, my parents were working in Hangzhou, and when I quit school, I went to Hangzhou to stay with them. But I got into some arguments with my parents, and we didn't have a very good relationship, so I ran away from my parents' home, all alone with only 100 Huang. I found a job for myself in Hangzhou, and then after a month had passed, I got in touch with my family to let them know I was okay. My first job was in security. This was in 2005 when I was 16. But I used the ID card of someone who was 18, because you had to be 18 to have a job. A lot of people use it to get jobs. I don't think my boss knew it was not my ID. If he did, they wouldn't have hired me. I worked in a residential community for the owners of some apartments. Once there was a thief who tried to steal some parts from a car. He got the hood open, but then we caught him. 4 other security guards beat him up and then sent him to the police. But I didn't join the beating because I was too young, and the other guards kept me away. I worked there for only 2 months. I was getting paid only 800 won per month. I was paid for my food and housing too, but still, I didn't think there were any job opportunities for career development, so I quit and found a new job. I went to work at the paper factory where my parents worked in Hangzhou. I was using someone else's ID again. Those factories find new workers simply by introduction made by people already working there. If you know someone who works there, then it's easy to get in. The jobs there are labor intensive. They are 8 hours a day for the factory. We had 3 shifts because machines don't stop. The machines go 24 hours a day. At that time, I was in the packaging department where we packed the paper for shipping. I did not enjoy that because it was so exhausting. But I was getting paid almost twice as much as when I was a security guard. I worked there for more than half a year. My parents worked there too, so they were able to monitor me more strictly. And I did what I could to learn to drive the forklifts, which were operated by more skilled workers. I wasn't supposed to drive them at the factory, wouldn't let me have that job. Still, I learned as much as I could and then quit that job after I felt I'd learned enough about how to operate a forklift. I thought I could get a better job. I found a job operating a forklift in another paper factory in Hangzhou. You need a certificate for forklifts, so I had a fake certificate made. There are advertisements for making fake certificates everywhere, so it's very easy to get one. For smaller factories, it's not easy to check whether a certificate like that is fake or not. And besides, what they care about is your ability to operate the forklift. They really don't care about the certificate as long as you have one. After the second paper factory in Hangzhou, I worked as a salesman in the city, but that was only for about 2 weeks. Then I came to Shenzhen and went to work as a security guard for a factory there 3 months before traveling north, following some leads on more permanent work. I ended up in Wenzhou, and I had another security job there where I was more like a temporary policeman working for a city's administrative offices. I worked there for more than a year, and at that time there was a policy that after working as a temporary police officer for 10 years, you could become an official policeman. I didn't stay there though. I was arrogant, and I made some mistakes, some serious mistakes. First, when we caught someone, we might first beat them up before arresting him or taking him to jail. This is a common practice among police and security guards in China. One time, 3 other temporary officers and I were trying to catch some bicycle thieves. We were wearing our plain clothes, and we followed behind one guy we thought was a thief for a whole day. He probably noticed us following him, so he didn't do anything on the first day. We were angry about it because for every thief we caught, we were given a bonus. We had followed that thief for a while, but because he didn't do anything, we couldn't get any bonus, so we were angry at him. And then the next day, around 2 or 3 in the afternoon, we caught up to him with a stolen bike on the street and gave him a heavy beating. One of the other guys kicked the thief, and he rolled under a rack of umbrellas completely unconscious. We took him to the station. Then, that night, sometime after midnight, one supervisor called us into the police station and asked us about what happened. He told us that the thief had died. 3 of my colleagues, the one who did most of the beating, are still in jail and haven't gone to trial yet. I had to leave the job. So after I lost my job as a security officer, I returned south in 2008. My next job was at Foxconn in Shenzhen. I started there around the end of 2008. I had heard about Foxconn from some friends, so I tried to get a job there. I didn't know much about the company, but I heard that the treatment there was relatively good. When I started, I was working 10 hours a day. 8 hours was a normal working day, but I worked 2 hours of overtime every day, and if you worked Saturday and Sunday, you got paid overtime for that. The basic salary for working Monday to Friday was 900 Huang, but we usually worked on Saturday and would have only Sunday off. So we would have 4 days off in a month and get paid 1,500 to 1,800 Huang for the month, with meals and housing included because of the overtime, which is barely enough to live on. Foxconn is a little more strict than other factories. Things out of the factories are a little more relaxed, but at Foxconn, the work is more demanding. At that time, I was living in the dorms in the factory. 10 people share one dormitory, about 20 square meters, and there is one bathroom for each dormitory. People sleep on bunk beds. I was working in the molding department at that time, stamping sheets of metal into shape for different products. We had to do different things, including operating the machines, sometimes packing, and maybe some cleaning up. I learned to operate the machines. But I started working there during the financial crisis, and after I'd been working there for about a month, the factory started to lay off people, and I was laid off too. I had met someone at Foxconn who became my girlfriend, and after I was laid off, I went back by myself to Hangzhou, and found a job operating forklifts at another paper factory. I worked there for about 3 months. And after 3 months, when the financial crisis was over, I went back to Foxconn. This second time at Foxconn, I was producing mobile phones for Nokia, spraying paint on the shells of the mobile phones. We wore dust-free uniforms, which covered our whole bodies and our heads, and we wore masks. There was only a slit for our eyes. That suit was so uncomfortable, and with the mask I felt I couldn't breathe. When we got the product into our department, we would put it onto the line, and there was a machine that would spray the paint over the phone automatically. After that, it would go to a high-temperature area for stabilizing the paint. And then we would take out the product and see if it was okay. I worked at Foxconn for 3 months, and again, I lived in the dorms during that time. I left because I was going to an engagement. We needed to meet each other's parents to ask them to be present at the ceremony. We were from the same area, and it just made more sense for us to quit Foxconn and go home to announce our engagement, because we couldn't invite all those people and make them travel all the way to Shenzhen. We met some of each other's relatives and had dinner together. I didn't plan to go back to Foxconn. I was thinking I would go over to where one of my relatives was living in Hangzhou. He was working at a factory making light bulbs. You could make 4,000 to 5,000 yuan a month there. It's a small workshop. There are a lot of small workshops in that area, and I did go there, but I couldn't manage because the temperature inside the shop was really high, 40 to 50 degrees Celsius. I couldn't stand it. After I quit the small shop, I found a factory nearby and went to work in the personnel department. The factory was not very big, and the job was not very demanding, but the salary was around 2,000 won a month. I worked for about 2.5 months, and then I went back to Foxconn in May 2010 because I didn't think there was anything that I could get going for myself over there in Hangzhou and for my girlfriend. She had worked in a light bulb factory with me at that time, and I was thinking of her because the temperature in the factory was too high and she could not handle it either. Foxconn was much better because there was air conditioning. There was a better place for her to work as a common worker. Me, I think I can find a job anywhere. So we both came back to Foxconn at the same time, and now we are living outside the dormitories in our own apartment. You don't have to live in the dormitory. You get paid more when you live outside the dormitory, about 150 yuan per month more. Living outside feels more free and more comfortable, but I lived in the dormitory before in order to save more money. The allowance for one person living outside the dormitory, which is about 300 yuan a month. Now I'm working in the storage department. On the production line, they use certain materials for their jobs. They report to our department and tell us what they need, and we do the purchasing. We keep materials in the storage area, and when they need those things, they will come to us and we distribute the materials to them. The working hours are the same as they've always been, but this is a much easier job than others at Foxconn. At Foxconn, the first priority is speed, the speed of manufacturing. It's only after they care about the quality, but I feel like a normal factory would care about quality because the client is the goal. But what the clients would care about would be the quality of the product. I don't think the clients care much about the efficiency, but at Foxconn, they think that the efficiency is most important because they want to complete orders that the clients make as soon as possible. They may not care very much about the quality, but I don't think that affects the workers much. What the workers care about is that they get their salary for the job. I don't think they care much about the quality of the products. I have heard about suicides. These are things that happen around us, but I don't know much about it. I don't have much to say about it. It's like people say, the management at Foxconn is like a machine. No matter whether the instructions they give workers are reasonable or not, the workers have to obey them. I don't have high hopes for Foxconn's prospects. I think they will close down because the management is so poor. For example, friends of mine working in a department that produces screens for cell phones, they have to produce 1,000 pieces every day in good condition. However, I learned that maybe half of them are not good quality. They are not up to standard. But this is not reported honestly to upper management. Maybe out of 500 bad products, only 50 of them will be reported. The front tier manager, the line leader in the department, is responsible for reporting to the upper management, but he doesn't do it honestly. Only the line workers know about that. I think this is a big waste. But the leaders on every level of the line, they all lie to the upper levels, because when you are being honest, you get punished. This is very common at Foxconn. I don't plan to work at Foxconn for a long time. I'm thinking of going into business for myself. But so far, I don't have a very clear idea of what I might do. I haven't yet thought of something that would have good prospects for me. Maybe I'll try something in the IT sector. I would like to be a technician. I would like to be someone with skills.